evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Mitchell Ringos. The Anishinaabe Police Service is seeking the public's assistance in identifying two suspects involved in a break-and-enter incident yesterday morning. In the early hours yesterday, these two suspects gained entry to Mountain View Variety and left with nearly $10,000 worth of various cigarettes. The two suspects were captured on video and stills of their faces were obtained by the surveillance system. Anyone with information on the identity of the suspects is asked to call police or Crime Stoppers. Meanwhile, one individual is facing numerous charges, including aggravated assault, following an incident at a local residence in Vermilion Bay. As Dry and OPP arrived on scene and located one individual with injuries. The individual was transported to hospital by EMS and was later released. As a result, a 59-year-old from Vermilion Bay was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including aggravated assault, pointing a firearm, and discharge with intent. Residents looking to buy a Christmas tree for the holiday season are in luck, as the West Fort Kiwanis Club's annual Christmas tree lot is open for business. Located on the CLE grounds behind the movie theater, over 40 volunteers came out to help the group carry and display hundreds of trees. Christmas Tree Committee Chair Terry Ferguson says he was worried if they'd even have trees at all, as it was difficult to get any from Ontario this year. Luckily, he was able to order 700 balsam firs all the way from Nova Scotia. The trees start at $70 and go up to $140 for some of the bigger trees. Proceeds from the tree sales go towards supporting the group's various programs and services for Thunder Bay children, and Ferguson says he's always blown away by the amount of support from the community.
It is heartwarming like you would not believe when we can move that many trees in 10 days. It's very, very heartwarming. The community comes together to help us because we're helping them, and that is a great feeling.
The Kiwanis tree lot will be open from noon to 8 p.m. on weekdays and from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends. Some impressive people were honored at City Council on Monday for making Thunder Bay a better place. It was the 13th annual Mayor's Community Safety Awards, which recognized 2 individuals and 4 community projects. Celios Bellos reports.
It's an important moment to recognize those who selflessly support Thunder Bay. The 13th annual Mayor's Safety Award winners were announced, recognizing 4 organizations and 2 individuals who make our city a better place. That includes John Green, commonly known as Bear, who was honored for his work supporting the homeless population as an Elevate NWO outreach worker.
You'd think they're at their worst, but they're smiling. When you get to see that, it's like, how do you not have a good day about that, right? It makes you think, well, okay, my day's going pretty good then, you know?
The Young Leader Award was presented to Winner McGuire, a dynamic young leader and co-president of the Regional Multicultural Youth Council. McGuire helps immigrants, Indigenous youth, and people of color navigate institutional barriers.
When I was younger, I thought I was too shy to get my voice out there, but now, I'm getting more comfortable talking in front of large groups, even if people don't agree with what I'm standing up for.
There were 4 outstanding community projects recognized as well, including the Expressive Arts program formed by Norwest Community Health Centers. The project teaches participants to utilize art to express emotions, cope with stress, and build confidence.
A lot of people don't realize or don't acknowledge or have been told they're not creative. And it's like, oh, yes, you are. You come to this class and you're going to find it. And everybody does.
Another outstanding community project recipient was the People with Lived Experiences Advisory Committee. The committee's insight extends to a number of organizations, including drug strategy and poverty reduction.
I think it's important that we get the opportunity to provide input to make Thunder Bay a more safer and more inclusive space.
The Voices Youth Project by the Regional Multicultural Youth Council was also an outstanding community project, helping rekindle young people's passion for learning and to combat disruptive impacts of COVID-19.
The financial part of the award is going to RMYC. It's going to be used for more of this sort of projects and youth-led initiatives in our community.
And for the 4th outstanding community project winner, Poverty Free Thunder Bay.
For them to overcome those and get work in the areas that are of interest to them.
Vicilios Bellos, TBT News.
Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa was pressing the Ford government at Queen's Park this week on the issue of First Nations homelessness in the Northwest. Mamakwa says there needs to be a quicker call to action, and Minister Greg Rickford responded, saying the provincial budget for housing programs has already increased by $200 million this year.
I've told this House even 2 years ago about people having to live in tents during the winter in Yabmatung, also known as Fort Hope. I also talked about the high numbers of people who live without homes in Sulikout. I guess it takes longer for changes to come up north. Why is that? And I asked the government, how many of the 1.5 million homes proposed by this government are for the people of Kiiwetinoong?
We do recognize the urgent need for adequate housing to meet the basic needs for many First Nations. That's why in the last budget, we invested in an additional $202 million annually in the province's homeless prevention program and, importantly, to the member's question, the Indigenous Supportive Housing Program. It brings Ontario's total yearly investment in these programs to close to $700 million. And this additional funding, Mr. Speaker, will help those experiencing or at risk for homelessness as they migrate into cities across Northern Ontario, for example, and support community organizations that will deliver supportive housing.
The town of Fort Frances is looking at adopting a nearly $20 million capital budget for 2024. The town will now wait until the new year to look at their operating budget and set the tax levy. Lee Noonan has the details.
Fort Frances Council has approved a $19.7 million capital budget in principle, although it still needs to be passed. They made the move to separate out their capital budget from the operating budget in order to get a jump start on several major capital projects.
In the world of roadworks, things like that, having tenders out early will often afford you some savings on your bottom line.
The budget includes $4 million for projects carried over from 2023, including major structural repairs of the pool building, as well as over $2 million for road work and $5.6 million in water and sewer improvements. Council will be looking at water and sewer rates soon as well, and they're expected to increase.
I don't think you can get away without increases in pretty much everything. I mean, people just have to look at their own budget at home, what you spend on your gasoline and your food and your fuel. Everything has gone up. The cost of living has gone up. It's no different for the municipality.
Of the total budget, $3 million would be coming from tax-funded reserves, exceeding a target of $2.6 million and leaving some reserves depleted. That's despite several rounds of cuts made by administration before the budget was presented to council.
I sat down with our senior management team and I said, look, I really want to try and focus the capital spending around what we are putting into our capital budget every year. And we got very, very, very close without, really diving into some very tough decisions.
Councillor Mandy Olson was the lone voice asking for a couple of the cut items to be put back in the budget, but in the end, council let the budget stand.
Administration looked at, can some items be postponed a year? Not necessarily cut, let's not use the word cut, but postponed a year so that we have a chance to replenish our reserves. And it was felt that those could be postponed a year.
The budget can be seen on the municipality's website. The public has about 3 weeks to provide any feedback they may have before council officially adopts the budget at their December 11th meeting. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Students and staff at Lakehead University recently got the chance to learn the ins and outs of 3D printing thanks to orientation sessions run by the school. LU has 3 of the high-tech printers, with the one in the makerspace for all students to use once they've completed their training. For just a 30-minute session, students will get a hands-on experience with a 3D printer. The orientation includes a general introduction to the machine, basic features and operation of the printers, and safety guidelines. Of the 3 printers on campus, the newest one is located in the Chancellor Patterson Library. Garth Galvin is a library technician at the school, and he says the 3D printers have helped students over the past 5 years bring their creativity to life.
They're going to do it by themselves, but we're going to be there to help support them. But we just want them to get the experience so they can actually use it and be able to go out into the world and say, hey, you know what, I know how to use a 3D printer. Well, it's here to help the students learn, do research, and to teach them how it's done.
The printer is only available to LU students and staff, and they first have to complete the orientation and use it for academic purposes. We're now joined by sports anchor Joe Sadowski. We turn to the Thunderwolves. They got a pretty tough matchup tonight, and the same can be said last night.
Yep, last night the highlights were fantastic, but they just came up short. But we'll have the basketball highlights and the hockey highlights and more coming up after the break.